return I was issued when I contested my second tenure election, that we should remain in office, so shall we remain in office.
It's one of the most recent contentious issues arising from the festering political crisis in Rivers State that started brewing last October. The Ameule-led House of Assembly had vetoed Governor Sim Fubara, having not assented to the amended local government tenure law. But who does the powers reside to amend the law concerning the tenure of the council chairman? The House or who?
The Ameule-led House of Assembly had been nullified. It doesn't exist. And whatever it has done, it's like putting something on nothing. It cannot stand. Secondly, the fact that it's a legislature, that is assuming but not considering that it's a properly constituted legislative house, makes it impossible for it to extend the tenure of a local government council, which is itself a legislative council. To do that is to assume that the House of Assembly can even extend its own tenure.
The political crisis in Rivers State notwithstanding, can the council chairman frontally dare the executive arm of government rather than resort to seeking redress in courts?
The governor of Rivers State should stand on his feet. If the law by Rivers State government said the tenure of chairmanship expired, so period, it beckoned on the governor to make sure the people vacate the office.
Within each local government, they have a system that runs itself. They have the head of administration, the head of operations. They can, in the interim, take over that and report directly to the governor, pending the conduct of proper elections.
But these Rivers residents have a contrary view.
Appeal court judgment had come out that let the status quo be maintained. Then it means that whatever the Martins and Mewule have decided will still subsist. Can they elongate the tenure of the local government chairman? Can state assembly? They can. We must follow the law. The law is very sacrosanct. The only thing that can repeal that decision is the constitution, is a court of competent jurisdiction.
If you look at it, by now, we should have been done with everything about local government election in the state. Look, up to now, there's no sign of any local government. So the assembly in its wisdom, drawing their powers from the constitution, I said, okay, because if you look at it, caretaker is not a provision of the constitution. The constitution provides that the local government, which is the third tier of government, should be administered by a democratically elected officers.
Rather than resort to self-help, the local government chairman concerned have been advised to toe the path of civility and constitutionalism.
People should also learn to respect the authority. For now, we have a governor. It doesn't mean whether you like him or not. If you don't like him, wait, 2027.
The most important thing, let whosoever that those people could listen to, let them call them to order for the purpose of peace in this state.
I think the only thing they will do is to file a motion for interpretation. And that I think that the governor of the state should have done early enough.
Many want the relative peace in the state, especially the capital, Port Harcourt, not to be usurped again since the not too pleasant experience of last October before President Bola Tinubu waded in with peace pact, which both parties involved have continued to accuse each other of breaching. Already, the political dice seems cast. Who wins? The council chairman goaded by the Ameule-led legislature via the amended law, or the executive arm of government led by Governor Fubara? In Port Harcourt, is Andy Omano, Arise News.
Okay, let's bring in Arise analyst Sam Amadi for more on this development. Sam, very warm welcome to Newsnight. I mean, it's a ding-dong affair in Rivers State. We've had the appeal court ruling maintain the status quo. And of course, is subject to different interpretations here. What status quo is to be maintained? Emefiele's status quo or the three-man State House of Assembly? Sam.
Well, first, the suit before the Court of Appeal is a suit challenging the grant of ex parte order. I mean, there's an appeal, but also challenging that order. And the court says, if you upset that, if you reverse it, we will be overreaching the merit. So the court says, let status quo remain. Clearly, the status quo is a status quo, where the court has given injunction on Emefiele 27, 28 legislators from taking further action. Now, the local government amendment, the extension of the local government tenure by way of legislative action, quote unquote, did it happen before the stay or after the stay, before the suit? So it's not a question of status quo would mean that if the law was validly passed before then that law presumably has extended. But the issue then is can the state of assembly extend the tenure of local government? And it goes back to the way that local government is now in crisis in Nigeria.
Very big crisis
in terms
indeed.
Of nature, relationship with federal state. So it's probably a structural problem. For example, the local government would look like an independent arm of government by virtue of the fact that the federation is between federal, state, local.
Three arms.
They share resources.
Or 3 tiers, right?
3 tiers, and that's an odd kind of federalism, because in most federal states, whether it's the US or whether it is like places like Germany and so on, it's usually between federal and region or federal and states.
So you allow the states create as many local governments as you want.
Or like in Switzerland, federal and cantonment. So you could have federal local governments or federal state, but we have federal state local government, and that's the problem. It's conceptually wrong. And so now that people are talking about independent autonomous local government, part of the debate is, okay, take it over from the governors, then federalize it. Some people are even talking about INEC, running local elections. Those things are democratically wrong, because the idea of a local government should be federation between the federal and the state. And if you look at the history of federal evolution of federal states, like the US, the states ceded power to the federal.
Center,
And that's why the US Constitution talks about residual powers belong to the states, because they're the ones that and where you hear some positions like Trump says, critical questions like abortion, critical questions should be reserved for states, because the state is the autonomous political unit that ceded power for the federation. In our own case, states were created by federal power, top down. So we didn't have autonomous states coming together to form a perfect union like the US said. We have federated power, the state, the Nigerian state as a republic or as a federal state, deciding to create states. So really, that's
the rivers imbroglio now, is really heating up, where the chairmen are saying they aren't going to leave at the expiration of their tenure. 3 years since 2021, that's 3 years. I mean, we know constitutionally they are supposed to have even 4 years and the rest. That's another, anomaly in local government administration and tenure system in Nigeria. We'll look at that. But what do you think is going to happen politically? Is Rivers going to be on fire as usual, particularly during elections?
Maybe, and again, now, if the governor's interpretation is correct, their tenure has expired. So if they're acting illegally. If the other interpretation is correct, which they're positing, they have been extended, given six more months. So what they're going to have now is a state of chaos. And that speaks to two things again. One, the judicial process grinds slowly and does not act proactive. I mean, we're going through all these preliminary objections and so on and so forth. Now, couldn't this matter have gone straight to the court to determine the question of the validity of that extension? So if they were more proactive, the question would now be, look, this will end today. So before now, the court would have come to make a pronouncement on the validity of that extension while dealing with other. But we're going to get this trapped now in a position where there's a likelihood of illegality one way or the other. So if the local government officials claimed the local government officers chairman remain, there could be use of force to evict them in office. There could be counter force. And the fact that politically the two camps seem to have two centers of authorization. The state is against the local government chairman, the XY or depending on the interpretation. But the federal government, they are working together with the Minister of FCT, who has also strong power. So are we going to see a repeat of what we saw under Amechi? We are state governor fighting with, in fact, reversal of roles. Wike there was the Minister of State under Jonathan. And then we saw the police commissioner, Mbo, and then we saw the allegation of maybe federal government, federal power, using him to resist Amechi's orders and things like that. And so we can see ourselves where you will see the orders of the governor of the state or orders of, being impeded or openly disregarded. Because, and then these guys will use federal power to get themselves back to authority until the court determines. So the way in which our democracy primes itself for this level of conflicts, from both lack of understanding of democratic process, from the textual incoherence and contradictions themselves, and from the desperation of the actors, and sometimes the lack of proactivity of the judicial institution itself. By now, a proactive judicial system could have come down on some definitive pronouncement that could have signaled the proper thing to do while we deal with all the substantial. But we're going to get tied up with going up and down on interim order, derogatory order, and now there's expiration. We don't know whether emphatically the tenure has ended. We don't know whether emphatically
the tenure is continuing. Well, let's look at a larger picturesque of the Nigerian local government system or administration. Its constitutional provisions is very clear. The federal government is already at the Supreme Court, seeking that the Supreme Court to accede to its own demands that the local government financial charges be given straight to it and excising it away from the apron of the state government, which to a lot of Nigerians has slowed down development in the local government area. What are your thoughts in this area, excising local government entirely from the three tiers of government or from the federation and allow states to manage their own councils and funds their councils?
Very good point. Let's not forget that under Obasanjo, this matter came up in similar sense because Okonjo-Iweala worried about, as part of the fiscal responsibility bill before it came up, the idea of constraining and controlling how state governors misuse local government funds. The National Assembly then enacted the law that kind of gives the federal government see-through and control over the local government funds that go to the state. So it means that the local government, the federal government had some kind of control, ensure that that money gets to the local government. They went to court, states went to court, and the Supreme Court then said, look, you have no obligation rather than to deposit in the joint account. Once you do that, bingo, you're off. Because that's what the Constitution says. So you are good Samaritanness in terms of saying, oh, this money should go to the local government.
It's contrary to the spirit of the
which
Constitution.
Then I thought was a wrong, or it might be textually right, but substantively wrong in the sense that we have a one national economy. Let's not forget that you have 36 states, but in real with the oil constituting about 80% of federal revenue in terms of remitter, in terms of export income generated. Yeah. We are one economy serviced by oil, which is under the control of the federal government. So that means that it looks irresponsible and reckless to say, just give these guys money, don't care about it. And then when unemployment grows, it becomes a federalized issue. When poverty grows, so there must be a sense in which...
And when national minimum wage issues...
needs to be the federal government step in. So there must be a way you should be able to say the federal government that gives this money should have some see-through, some oversight around it. Now, in this case, I think that we need to be very clear what we want. If you want to keep local government autonomous, then you cannot keep local government autonomous, state government autonomous, federal, as a matter of political theory. You should have a federation of two parts, center with a region. Now some people are talking about region, and say, okay, regions will now have state federated. So if we're going to have state, we must have a federation of federal and state. And then the states can federalize and they can come together at the level of regions and also go downwards at the level of local governments, counties. So we must be clear that we want federal state. Now this state can organize upward and downwards. Regions. Some people are talking about region. Region should be, if we're going to have states, the region cannot be legal or constitutionally recognized. It must be some kind of arrangement between states to come together as regions.
And just like an association.
Corporation.
Corporation.
Put together resources, do some major infrastructure. Then the local government, the state themselves should be able to determine their local government structure, elections, and this fear. I mean, people are saying, let INEC do, because the state governors have been totally, sometimes reckless, undemocratic, managing local government. But look, democracy has to be local. You have to go there and fight. You have to go to National Assembly, to House of Assembly, and create democratic outcome for yourself. You can't ask federal government to parachute in a state and help you sort out democratic deficit. That's not democratic. That's not the way to be Democrats. So yes,
the election at the federal level being
properly organized. So why bring INEC? So people are trying to cop out from the hard work. The hard work is that the states should be the one responsible for local government, create them, manage them in a democratic, and the people in the state should be the ones.
Is there a constitutionally lengthy way to go to achieving that and just make Nigeria a two-tier, system of government?
It's actually easy now with what they're doing now. I mean, the same way that got the constitution amended in many ways. If they go around, they all they need to do is delete. By the way, many of these functionally and administratively, these local governments are under state control 100%. I mean, the state governors appoint.
So let them just go.
Just put constitutional deletion and revision, and then we have straight federal states manage local government.
And create as many local government. If you want to make each street a local government,
then make it
then that's
economically viable.
Yeah.
It's your own burden if you don't make it work.
Thank you so very much, Associate Professor of Law and Rise Analyst, Sam Amadi. Thanks for coming on News.
Thank you.